Hello everybody. Today we're actually going to go through and try and create a DHCP system on a router, creating two different networks connected together with two switches trunked together. You'll see what that means here shortly. We're using Cisco Packet Tracer in logical form. One of the things I like about using Cisco Packet Tracer, we'll throw a switch out here just to kind of give you an idea. At this configuration mode, once it's finished booting up, you'll actually be able to go through and use this graphic user interface right here and see all the different things that come with it. So if you're new to trying to create a network and you don't know the commands to get somewhere, down here at the bottom it shows you when you first open up the switch, you got to type in enable. Then you're going to have to type in configure terminal, and then it's going to tell you show you how you get into interface 1, interface 2. There are ways to get all these interfaces in one go, and that's using an interface range. Alright, you'll see access. You click access, you can choose access or trunk. Over here in VLANs, you can go through and click on everything. If you go up to the top, you can add a VLAN database, a VLAN into the database, and it will add it down here into your system. But real world applications, you don't use this graphic user interface. You need to know how to do it in the command line. Alright. So we'll go ahead and delete that for now. If you hit the delete key, it shows you this little cursor. You can go through and choose different things to delete. If you don't want that to happen anymore, just hit the escape key and you'll go back to your original cursor. So the first thing you want to do is set up your router. I'll just go through and choose a router, put it up here. Alright. You can go in and rename your router, whatever you need to name it. So first thing that's going to come up is going to be what the back of the physical router looks like. You can zoom out, see the original size, zoom in. In order to add any of these modules over here on the left to this, you need to go through and turn the router off. And you can click through them, and it shows you down here what you can add to your router and what it would look like if you added it to it. These different aspects of it. Usually I don't like to mess with them unless I have to. I'll just take and put additional covers on there. That way it's not bothered. But you can leave it alone and it will work just fine. You don't have to add anything. If you want to, it shows in your configuration. So here we show Gigabit Ethernet 00 and 01. If we go back to the physical, turn it off, remove the cover. We can just choose one item, doesn't matter what it is. Put it in, turn it on, go to CLI and see when it finishes booting. Once it finishes booting, then we'll be able to go into the configuration mode or the configurations tab. Now we go into the configurations tab and it shows we have 4 fast Ethernet ports. We don't really need them for what we're about to do, but this is just a quick overview on what you can do. So we'll go to CLI, we'll hit enter, enable, configure terminal. Alright. Once we get to this point, we're going to want to shut down all of our ports. The reason you shut them down is so that nobody can just come right up to them, plug into them, and start doing whatever they want with them. You want to make sure that everything is controlled within the network. Alright, so we're going to do int range. This is how you get both your Gigabit Ethernet ports to shut at the same time. G0/0-1 and I have both gigabit Ethernet ports right now. If I tell it to shut down, it turns both of those off. Alright, so just because I went ahead and added the fast Ethernet ports, I'm going to go through and disable those as well. FA 0/0/1 through 0 through 3. Not 10 through 3. 0 through 3. That gets all 4 of those fast Ethernet ports at one time. Alright, so we're going to do shutdown. And now all of our ports are shut down. We can't use them unless you go in and turn them back on. Alright, so we're going to exit. Now we're back into configuration terminal mode. Alright, here we want to try and set up our encapsulations and our DHCP pools. So if we go through and we set up our DHCP pools first, we can then come back and set up our encapsulations. So let's go ahead and do the IP, DHCP, excluded address. Now you typically can go in and put the very first one, the 192.168.1.1. Alright, because we can see here in the upper left hand corner what our network is going to be. 192.168.1.0. That's the whole network, the whole 256 hosts. So we have to go through and determine which hosts we want to exclude from this DHCP. Those are going to basically be reserved for static IP addresses for like a server or a printer, things in that nature. Alright, but we also want to have an endpoint, so we'll go with 192.168.1.10. Typically the last one you use in your excluded address you can use as your IP helper address, and which will come in handy when we get to setting up our switches. Alright, so now that we have the excluded addresses, we go IP, DHCP, pool, space, HR underscore pool. Alright, as you can see with the mouse here, we have our name for that network as HR, so we can label it HR underscore pool. Alright, we'll hit enter. Now that we have the pool in there, we need to go ahead and define the network. Alright, so this is where it's going to say network 192.168.1.0. Wait, didn't we determine that right up here? That's our network. But we also need to identify what our subnet mask is. Alright, so our subnet mask in this case is 255.255.255.0. Alright, now that we have our network defined for that DHCP pool, we need to define what our default router or default gateway is going to be for that DHCP. Alright, so we need to default dash router 192.168.1.1. Alright, if you have a DNS server, you would put your DNS server in here next for this DHCP pool. Since we're not putting a DNS server in there, we're just going to omit that. Alright, but if you were to do it, it would say DNS-server, and we'll just put in Google's DNS. 1, 2, 3, 4. Alright, that's what it would basically look like, but the 4/8 would be the IP address to your DNS server. So if you had a DNS server with an IP address as 192.168.1.20, that would be your what you placed here. Alright, so since we're omitting that, we're just going to exit. We're going to set up our second DHCP pool. Alright, so it's going to be IP DHCP excluded address 192.168.2.1 192.168.2.10 IP DHCP pool. Now what's that second one labeled? IT underscore P pool. There we go. Now we need to set up the network. 192.168.2.0. The reason you use the 0 is that's typically your network identifier, and you don't use 255 because that's the network broadcast ID. Alright, but so we need to still put our subnet mask in there at 255.255.255.0. Alright, again, our default router 192.168.2.1. Again, we don't have DNS set up, so we're going to go ahead and exit. Now from here, we'll want to encapsulate, because we're going to be using the one port to connect to one switch. We want to encapsulate both of these DHCP pools into that one port. Well, you can't have more than one IP on an actual port unless you encapsulate it. Encapsulation allows you to have multiple sources of information to go through one port. Alright, so we need to set up our encapsulation. So we're going to do int g0/0.10. That's going to be the start of your encapsulation. Alright. Now you need to go through and define your sub interface. Alright, so we're going to do encapsulation. Going through and making sure I'm spelling everything correctly before I continue. DOT1Q. Alright, and this is important. You got to make sure to put the 10 after, because this is going to be for VLAN 10. Alright. Now that we have the encapsulation in there, we need to put the IP address for that encapsulation. So IP address 192.168.1.1. Don't forget, you also need to put your subnet mask in there as well. 255.255.255.0. Alright. Exit. And we'll begin the encapsulation for the second VLAN as well. So we're going to do int g0/0.20. We're going to do the encapsulation again. En pardon me. DOT1Q 20. Now we're going to do network 192.168.2.1 255.255.255.0. Uh-oh, what did I put in wrong? Oh, I put network instead of IP address. So it tells you that you put something wrong in if you messed up. So if you misspelled a word, or if you messed up and didn't put your subnet mask in, it would tell you invalid input detected. So we got to do IP address 192.168.2.1 255.255.255.0. And look, we got it corrected. Awesome. Alright, so we're going to exit. We're going to do int g0/0. Now this is the one port that is being used, the gigabit 0/0. And is actually putting both DHCP pools through there. So we're going to go ahead and do no shutdown. Yep. Getting ahead of myself. Alright. Exit. End. And then we're going to write it to memory. Now, we have our router set up. Alright, so now we're going to go through and put in two switches. One switch here. One switch over here. And for the fun of it, we're going to go ahead and hold down the control button, click PC, let go of the control button, click, 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 click. Hit the escape key. Now we can drag everything around that we want. So we're going to click into this first router. We're not going to adjust anything in here. It's not going to let you adjust anything because there's no modules. Alright, so now we want to shut down all the ports. So we're going to enable. There are shorthands for all of these. So EN would be short for the enable. CONF space T will be short for configure terminal. Alright. INT is short for interface. These are commands that you can actually look up on Google. Alright, so we're going to do interface range FA 0/1 through 24. That gets all 24 fast Ethernet ports at one time. Shut. Exit. Int range G 0/1 through 2. There's only 2 gigabit Ethernet ports on this switch. Alright, and the first one doesn't start with 0. It's 0/1 and then 0/2. Alright, so we're going to shut those down as well. Now we're going to exit. Now for this being the first switch, it's going to have both VLANs 10 and 20 on it. So we need to go through and define VLAN 10 and then name it HR. And we'll put in the IP, oops, we're in configuration mode, we're not in interface mode. Alright, so we're going to exit. Interface VLAN 10. Change VLAN 10 to up. Alright, we're going to do IP helper dash address 192.168.1.10. Now we have our IP helper set up for VLAN 10. So we're going to exit and do VLAN 20, name, IT, exit, int VLAN 20, IP helper, address 192.168.2.10, exit. Now, all the ports are shut down. We have our VLANs set up, but we need to change the gigabit Ethernet ports to go from access to trunk. Alright, so int range now switch port mode trunk. We just in one fell swoop put both of our fast or gigabit Ethernet ports to a trunk mode versus an access mode. Alright. We have one switch set up Now we're going to go through and set up the other switch. And again, you could go through and click into each individual one of these and turn them off. So if I clicked here, I can go in and turn this off, turn that off, switch it from access to trunk. I could do that if I wanted, but I prefer to do it as if I were in real world versus playing around. Alright, so we're going to do int range FA 0/1 through 24. Shut. Exit. Int range G 0/1-2. Shut. Since I know already I'm going to be putting both of those into a trunk mode, even though I really only have to put the first one in the trunk mode, I'm going to go ahead and do it. Switch port, mode, trunk. Exit. I'm going to define VLAN 20 because I'm not having any of VLAN 10 on this switch.
We're not going to have the lab tonight at the end here.
Alright, so we're going to set up our VLAN 20. Since we don't have VLAN 10 on this switch, we're going to omit adding VLAN 10. Alright, so go through and make sure I can. Alright, so we need to name it IT. Alright, exit IP helper address 192.168.2.10. Uh-oh. What did I do wrong? Oh. I didn't do that in the interface mode. I did do that in interface. Oh, I know. I didn't do that in interface mode. Off T. Int VLAN 20. IP helper address 192.168.2.10. There we go. So we're going to exit. Now I only have 3 PCs for each switch. So I'm going to take the first 3 fast Ethernet ports and put those to VLAN 20. Alright, so we're going to do int range FA 0/1 through 3. Switch port access VLAN 20. Now we're going to do no shut. Exit. Int gig 0/1. Alright. No shut. So we know that we have now, if we click off of it and hover over it, it shows we have VLAN 20 is up. Fast Ethernet ports 1, 2, and 3 are set to VLAN 20. The rest of them are down and we're still set to VLAN 1. Alright. Here, we need to go in and set the first 3. Almost forgot to do the range. FA 0/1 through 3. Switch port. Access. VLAN 10. No. Shut. Short for no shutdown. Shut is short for shutdown. No shut is short for no shutdown. Alright, so we're going to exit. And now you can go through and click on this, which will automatically choose the best cable to go from device to device. Or you can think logically, real world connection, you're going to go computer, fast Ethernet 0, and you can choose what port you're setting it to. Alright, but if you hold go here, we're going to click here, hit that 1, 2, and we're going to click here, gigabit Ethernet 2, gigabit Ethernet 1, go through and connect all of our cables. Now we have all of our cables connected. I'm just going to shorten this up a little. See how here we have red, here we have orange, and here we have green. And you see it changed from orange to green. That's the communication going between the switch and the PC. It's receiving information and can pass information along, but none of these computers are set up with an IP address. Right now they have an IP address. Alright, so just going to move this along because I'm getting close to the end of my free time. I'm going to come in, that's turned on, and we'll just give it a random address. Come down here. That's what I'm talking about when I say you can go in and click turning it on. We'll take off the defaults that are on there. When you don't know what the command is, remember when you come in and change something in this graphic user interface, it automatically shows you what the command is going to be to remove that. So if I come in and click back on, it'll say add versus remove. If I click it off, it'll say remove. Alright, so we're going to go here. Yeah, both. Click out of that. Everything off. And we will turn on that port. See how I changed to orange? Changed to orange. Now we've got a green here, so let's go into our first computer. Click desktop, IP, DHCP, successful request. Unfortunately, there's not a way to go through and click on each or have each computer go automatically to a DHCP. You have to click on each individual one to get an address. So now here we're going to the second switch. Desktop. We're on a stack. We want an IP DHCP. Successful. Desktop configuration DHCP. Successful. Successful. Now there's a way to go through and test if you're going to get information to go from one PC to another. A quick test. If you just hover over it, it shows you your IP address 1.11, and click over, hover over this one. 2.13. So we're going to go here to command prompt and ping 192.168.1.11. Your first one is generally going to mess up. Say request failed, request timed out, and then you're going to start getting information. So if you hit up on the up arrow, you immediately start getting the information because it's trying to figure out what path it needs to take to get to that other system. Alright, hope this has been informal and educational for you. If it is, come on back. I plan on getting more. Have a good night, everybody.